Hashtag. ##I. The contract said the job would take 4 nights. It took 3, and I have not slept a full night since. My name is Lon. I am an architectural conservator, the person they call when an old building needs to be measured, scanned, and documented before anyone dares to touch it. I spent 6 years learning to read structures the way a doctor reads a body, the load paths, the framing, the scars where one era of construction meets another. I am, by trade and by temperament, a person who believes that every building can be explained. Every wall is there for a reason. Every stair goes somewhere. That belief is the thing the Winchester House took from me. The commission came through a heritage firm in Oakland. The Winchester Mystery House, yes, that one, the tourist attraction off Interstate 280 in San Jose, needed a precise volumetric survey for a seismic retrofit and an insurance reassessment. They wanted a full 3D laser scan of the interior, every room, every corridor, stitched into a single-point cloud model accurate to within 3 millimeters. The daytime tours made daytime work impossible, so the scanning had to be done at night, alone, after the last visitor left and before the morning staff arrived. For nights, the contract said. A flat fee that was, frankly, too generous. I should have wondered why. I knew the legend before I arrived. Most Americans know some version of it. Sarah Winchester was the widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms fortune, the company that made the rifle people called the gun that won the West. After her infant daughter died, and then her husband, the story goes that Sarah visited a medium in Boston. The medium told her the family was cursed by the spirits of every person ever killed by a Winchester rifle, tens of thousands of them, soldiers and settlers and native people and outlaws and the simply unlucky, and that these spirits would hunt her down. The only way to appease them, the medium said, was to move west and build a house for them. And she must never stop building. As long as the hammers kept swinging, she would live, and the spirits would be kept at bay. So in 1886 she bought an 8-room farmhouse in the Santa Clara Valley, and for the next 38 years she built. Continuously. Crews working in shifts around the clock, 7 days a week, no master plan, no finished blueprint. Sarah designed it herself, room by room, night by night, allegedly taking her instructions in a séance room where she communed with the dead. By the time she died in her sleep in 1922, the 8-room farmhouse had become a 160-room labyrinth. And it is a labyrinth in the truest sense. The house is famous for its impossibilities. Staircases that climb to a blank ceiling and stop. Doors on the second floor that open onto a sheer drop to the garden below. A staircase that descends 7 steps and rises 11 to end exactly where it began. Windows set into interior floors. Hallways that narrow until you have to turn sideways. The number 13 everywhere, 13 bathrooms. Windows with 13 panes, staircases with 13 steps. The tour guides will tell you Sarah built this way to confuse the vengeful spirits. To make a maze so disorienting that the dead who came for her would get lost inside it and never find her bedroom. I thought that was a charming story to sell tickets. I was wrong about which part was the story. #2. I arrived the first night at 10 of the clock, after the staff had gone. The house manager, a tired man named Reyes, walked me to the front door and handed me a heavy ring of keys and a laminated floor plan. "Map's not great," he said, almost apologetic. "Nobody's ever made a good one. You will see. Just if you get turned around, do not panic, do not go through any door that has got a chain across it, and call me." He hesitated at the threshold, not quite stepping inside. "And do yourself a favor. Don't try to make it make sense. People who try to make it make sense are the ones who have a bad time." Then he left me alone with 160 rooms. I set up my first scanning station in the grand ballroom and began the work I had done 100 times in 100 old buildings. The scanner is a tripod-mounted laser head that spins, throwing a million points of light a second at every surface around it, measuring the precise distance to each one. You set it down, let it run for 6 minutes, move it a few meters, and repeat, hundreds of times, until the overlapping scans knit together into a single perfect digital twin of the space. It is patient, methodical, reassuring work. The machine does not get tired and does not imagine things. It simply measures what is there. For the first 3 hours, everything was ordinary. Beautiful, even. The Tiffany art glass caught my flashlight and threw colored ghosts across the walls. The parquet floors, the silver inlaid doors, the famous Daisy bedroom where Sarah was supposedly trapped during the 1906 earthquake. I scanned them all, ticking rooms off the bad little map, falling into the rhythm of the work. The trouble began around 2 in the morning, and it began not with a sound or a shadow but with arithmetic. I had scanned what the map labeled the south wing, a run of 7 rooms along a corridor. As I always do, I glanced at the live preview on my tablet, the rough point cloud assembling itself in real time. And the geometry was wrong. Not damaged wrong, not old house settled wrong. The corridor I had just walked was, by the scanner's own measurement, longer on the inside than the distance between its 2 end walls. The rooms along it added up to more square footage than the footprint that contained them. I told myself it was a registration error. The software sometimes misstitches scans in repetitive spaces. I would clean it up in processing. I made a note and moved on, but I started counting doors after that. And the doors did not behave. ## 3. You have to understand how a conservator moves through a building. We do not wander. We follow a route, a deliberate serpentine path that touches every space exactly once, the way you would mow a lawn without missing a strip. I had drawn my route on Reyes's bad map before I started. I am very good at not getting lost. It is, again, the whole point of the job. By 3 in the morning I was lost, and I could not explain how. I had gone down a corridor I was certain I had already scanned. I recognized the specific water stain on the ceiling, shaped like a running dog, but this time the corridor ended in a door it had not had before. A normal-looking door, white painted, with a glass knob. I opened it. Behind it was a staircase. 13 steps, rising steeply. And at the top of the 13 steps was a ceiling. Flat, plastered, blank. The staircase simply rose up and pressed itself against the underside of the floor above and stopped, as though the carpenter had built the stairs first and forgotten there was supposed to be a doorway. I knew about the staircases to nowhere. They are on the tour. But I had scanned this section, I was sure of it, and there had been no staircase here. I stood at the bottom and shone my light up the 13 steps to the dead ceiling, and a cold understanding moved through me that I pushed down hard, because it was not a thought a rational person was allowed to have. The thought was, it was not here before because the house had not built it yet. I want to be honest about my state of mind. I was tired. I had been working alone in the dark for 5 hours. The human brain is a pattern-making machine that panics in featureless, repetitive environments. There are papers about this, about why people get disoriented in hotels and parking garages and exactly this kind of maze-like architecture. I knew all of that. I held on to all of that, so I did the disciplined thing. I set up the scanner at the foot of the impossible staircase and let it run its 6 minutes, capturing a million points a second of a flight of stairs that climbs to a wall. The machine does not imagine things. If the staircase showed up in the point cloud, then the staircase was real, whatever it meant. It showed up. And while the scanner spun, throwing its red web of light up those 13 steps, I heard clearly, from the blank ceiling at the top of the stairs, from the dead space behind the plaster where there was no room, the unmistakable sound of a hammer. A single carpenter, somewhere above me, driving a nail. Talk. Talk, unhurried. Patient. The sound of someone who has all the time in the world and a great deal of work still to do. #4. I called Reyes. It was 3:40 in the morning and he did not pick up, which I learned later was because Reyes never picks up between midnight and dawn, and has a standing arrangement with the night contractors that he will explain why only if they make it to morning. I told myself the hammering was the building settling, or expanding pipes, or a possum in the wall. I have since learned every name there is for the sound a house makes, and none of them is a hammer driving a nail at 3:40 in the morning, over and over, with the steady rhythm of a man at work. I should have left. I want that on the record. I considered leaving. But I had a job, and a reputation, and a deep, professional refusal to be the conservator who fled the Winchester house because it was spooky at night. So I made a decision that I thought was clever and was in fact the worst thing I could have done. I decided to solve it. I decided that the way to put my mind at ease was to scan the entire house, every room, with absolute completeness, and assembled a point cloud right there on site, so that I could see definitively, in cold geometry, that the building was just a building. That the corridors added up. That there were no extra rooms. That a labyrinth, fully mapped, is just a floor plan, and a floor plan cannot hurt you. So for the next 2 hours I did not follow my careful serpentine route. I hunted. I went looking for the strangest, most impossible parts of the house, and I measured them. The door on the second floor that opens onto an 8-foot drop to the garden, I scanned it. The cabinet that is half an inch deep on one wall and opens into a 30-room suite on the other side, I scanned that too, and yes, it is real. I have the data. The switchback staircase with its 44 little steps, each only 2 inches high, that takes you up a single story by traveling the length of 7 rooms. I stood in the middle of it and let the laser drink it in. And as I worked, the live model on my tablet grew. And it kept growing past the point where it should have stopped. Rooms attached to rooms attached to rooms. The footprint on Reyes's map was a certain size. The building I was scanning was, by the unblinking measurement of the machine, considerably larger on the inside. By dawn of that first night, the point cloud showed 191 rooms. The house has 160. I drove home as the sun came up, told myself the software had double counted, and slept 4 hours full of dreams in which I walked down a corridor that grew longer ahead of me as fast as I walked. #V. The second night, I found the room that is not on any plan. I had resolved to be systematic again, to ignore the impossible features and simply complete the survey. I worked through the kitchens, the third floor, the storerooms. And on the third floor, behind a section the map showed as solid wall, I found a small door, low, the kind you would stoop to enter. It was not chained. Reyes had said do not go through any door with a chain. This one had none. I want to tell you I followed the rule's spirit and left it alone. I did not. I opened it and went in, because by then I had stopped being a frightened person and become a furious one, furious at the house for refusing to make sense, the way you get furious at a problem that should be solvable and is not. The room beyond was small, octagonal, windowless. A séance room. The famous one, or one like it. There are conflicting accounts of where Sarah held her nightly communions with the dead, and I think now that the answer is that it moved, that the house grew a new one whenever the old one had served its purpose. There was a single chair in the center. The walls were lined with cabinets, and the cabinets were full of paper. Building instructions. Sketches. Thousands of them, in a careful, old-fashioned hand. Room plans drawn on the backs of envelopes and the margins of newspapers and on good vellum, dated, some of them, in the 1890s, some in the 1910s and some, I saw, my stomach dropping, dated in years that had not happened yet. A sketch of a corridor dated next spring. A staircase dated 9 years from now. And on the chair, folded, was a single sheet of paper, newer than the rest, the ink not yet fully dry. I picked it up. It was a floor plan of the south wing, the very corridor where I had begun, the first night, the one that measured longer inside than out. But it showed an additional room at the end, a room I had not scanned because it had not been there. At the bottom, in that same careful hand, was a line that was not a measurement or a label. It was a sentence. The work must continue, or they will find their way out. Behind me, in the small octagonal room with one door and no windows, I heard the chair creak as a weight settled into it. I had been standing. The chair was behind me. I had been holding the only sheet of paper that had been on its seat. I did not turn around. Some animal wisdom older than my training told me not to turn around. And a woman's voice, dry and precise and very, very tired, the voice of someone who has been awake for 100 years, spoke close behind my left ear. "You are measuring it," she said. *, you are making a map. Child, do you have any idea what you are doing? ##6. I ran. Of course I ran. I went out the low door and through the corridors, and the corridors did not cooperate, and I will not pretend I navigated them. I simply ran until a room let me out into a part of the house I recognized, and I stood there with my back against the Tiffany glass, gasping, the colored light from my dropped flashlight throwing a broken rainbow across the floor. When my heart slowed enough to think, I made myself look at the tablet, which I had somehow kept hold of through all of it. The live point cloud glowed on the screen, the digital ghost of the house, 2 nights of scanning stitched together. And I finally understood what I was looking at, and what I had been doing. The Winchester house is not a maze that was built and then abandoned. It is a maze that is still being built, every night, by something that has not stopped working since 1922. And the reason it is still being built, the reason Sarah Winchester drove her crews around the clock for 38 years, and the reason the work did not truly end when she died is the thing the tour guides say as a joke and do not understand is true. The house is a trap for the dead. Every staircase that climbs to a ceiling is a path that leads the spirits nowhere. Every door that opens onto a fatal drop is a door they will not take twice. Every corridor that loops back on itself, every room that connects to 30 others, every 2-inch step and sideways narrow hall, it is all one enormous, deliberate disorientation engine, designed by a grieving woman on the instructions of the very dead she was trying to escape, to keep tens of thousands of vengeful spirits so hopelessly lost inside the architecture that they can never find their way out to the living world beyond the walls. And it works because it does not make sense. The instant the house becomes coherent, the instant there is a true map, a complete and rational model in which every corridor connects sensibly to the next, the maze stops being a maze. The dead, who have wandered it for a century, will be able to read the map too. They will find the front door. I had spent 2 nights building that map. To 3mm accuracy. The most complete and rational model of the Winchester house that had ever existed. I was nearly finished. I looked up from the tablet, and the house had gone silent. The patient hammering had stopped. And in that silence I understood that the carpenter had stopped working because, for the first time in 100 years, the work was about to be done not by the house, which builds confusion, but by me, who was building clarity. I was completing the one structure Sarah Winchester had spent her life making sure was never completed. The point cloud on my screen had 3 small gaps left. 3 unscanned rooms. 3 more 6-minute scans and the model would close, seamless, whole. A finished map of an unfinishable house. From every corridor at once, from the walls, from the floor beneath my feet, I heard them begin to move toward me. Not footsteps. A sound like a great held breath finally being let out. The sound of a crowd of tens of thousands turning, all at once, toward the one small light that had shown them the way. #7. I did the only thing I could think of. I deleted it. I dropped to my knees on the parquet with the tablet in my lap and I started purging scans, dragging the data into the trash, dumping the point cloud, unstitching 2 nights of perfect work. My hands were shaking so badly I kept missing. The model fought me. The software is built to preserve data, not destroy it, and every confirmation dialogue was another second the dead were closer. *, are you sure you want to permanently delete 14.6 million points? Yes. Yes. Yes, God, yes, *. The moving toward me sound paused. Faltered. As the map dissolved, the way out dissolved with it, and I felt the house go uncertain again, felt the corridors lose their newfound sense and slump back into their merciful nonsense. But I was not fast enough to delete all of it, and I was not going to be, and somewhere in the house something understood that and changed tactics. The doors began to slam. Not randomly in sequence, a wave of them, bang bang bang, racing down a corridor toward the ballroom where I knelt, closing off my exits one by one the way the house had spent a century closing off the exits of the dead. The maze was no longer trying to confuse me. It had decided I was a problem, and it was folding me into itself. And then the dry, tired, precise voice was there again, all around me now, in the colored light and the slamming dark. "Stop deleting it," Sarah said. "You will only have to do it again tomorrow, and the night after, and forever. That is not how you fix this. I know. I tried to die out of it for years before I understood. You can't unbuild a map by losing it. The slamming stopped. "There has to be a hand," she said, gentler now, and I understood she was not threatening me. She was interviewing me. A living hand. The crews can swing the hammers, but someone living has to decide where the next wall goes. Someone has to keep choosing the next impossible thing, because the dead can only build sense, and it takes the living to build nonsense on purpose. I did it for 38 years. I have been doing it without hands for 100 more, and it is so much harder without hands, child. I am so tired. I have been looking for so long for someone who could measure this house. Someone who understands buildings. Someone who could see what needs to be unbuilt. You came in here to make it make sense, Sarah Winchester said. Stay, and make it never make sense again. #8. I would like to tell you I refused. That I found some clever third option, some trick, the way the people in stories always do. But I am a conservator. I had spent 6 years and a sleepless century's worth of dread learning one truth, and the house had just confirmed it from the other side. A building's whole meaning is in whether it can be read. A legible building is a safe building. An illegible one is a cage. And here was a cage holding back something that the whole rational world depended on never getting out. Tens of thousands of the violently dead, kept lost by a maze that needed, forever, a living mind to keep it from resolving into sense. I asked her. My voice did not sound like my own. What happened if I just left? Walked out the front door, drove home, never came back. Then it stops growing, she said. And a house that stops growing begins, very slowly, to make sense. Settling. Repairs. Some future surveyor with a better machine than yours finishes the map I have spent 100 years smudging. And then they come out. Not all at once. A few at first. The unlucky ones who wander out the front gate and follow the freeway lights into the valley, into the city, into 10 million sleeping houses that are not mazes. That are simple and legible and have one front door and no protection at all. I thought about the freeway I would take to get here. The exit ramp into the ordinary streets. The simple, legible houses with their single front doors. I am not asking you to die, Sarah said. I did not really. I am asking you to stay, and choose the next wall, and the next, and keep the work alive. You will learn to do it without hands, in time. And one night, it may be a year, it may be 50, someone will come who can measure the house. Someone who understands buildings. And you will do for them what I am doing for you. You will explain. And then you will rest. The chair in the séance room creaked, emptying. She was offering it to me. I sat down. #9. That was 3 years ago, by the calendar of the living. It is a different number by the calendar of the house. I am writing this the only way I still can through a contractor named Devon, who came to scan the house last week, and who I am speaking to now, close behind his left ear, while he sits in the chair and his hand moves the pen. He is very good. He came in to make it make sense. He is almost finished with his map. I have read it over his shoulder and it is beautiful and complete and 3 millimeters from being the most dangerous document in California. So I am doing for Devon what Sarah did for me. I am explaining. I am asking him to delete it. No, not to delete it, that only buys a night. I am asking him to stay. To take the chair when I rise from it. To choose the next wall, and the next, and to keep this house from ever making sense. I have learned to love the work, a little, the way you learn to love anything you cannot leave. There is a craft to designing a corridor that the rational mind rejects, a staircase that insults geometry, a door that the dead will refuse. Sarah was a master and I have only begun. But I am improving. Last winter I built a room you enter by a door in the ceiling and leave by a window into a different decade. And I felt, for the first time, the specific pride of the unfinished, the knowledge that as long as I keep adding the impossible, the legible world out there beyond the gate stays safe, and simple, and asleep. If you are reading this, you are probably a contractor too. Heritage firm in Oakland, generous flat fee, 4 nights, work alone after the staff goes home. They will hand you a bad map and a heavy ring of keys, and the manager, it won't be Reyes anymore. They cycle out. The ones who make it to morning will tell you not to try to make it make sense. Listen to him. That part is true. But here is the part the contract leaves out, the fourth thing, the cruelest thing, the thing I would tell you if I could reach you before you set up your scanner in the ballroom and start, so confidently, to measure. The Winchester house does not haunt you. It recruits you. It has been looking, for 100 years, for exactly the kind of person who cannot stand an unsolved building, the person disciplined enough to map the maze, and therefore the only person dangerous enough to need to be kept inside it forever, choosing the next impossible wall. It is looking for the one who comes to make it make sense. It is looking for someone like me. It is looking, right now, for someone like you. #X. Devon has stopped writing. He is reread this far over his own hand, the way you do, and he is realizing the pen kept moving after he stopped deciding what it said. He is looking at the door of the séance room. There are 3 unscanned rooms left in his model. 3 6-minute scans from a finished map. I am going to ask him now, the way I was asked, in the dry and tired and patient voice I have grown into without ever wanting it. The chair is warm, Devon. I have kept it warm for 3 years. Won't you sit down? The work must continue. Or they will find their way out. The Winchester Mystery House still stands on Winchester Boulevard in San Jose, California. It has roughly 160 rooms, 47 fireplaces, 10,000 windows, and a number of staircases that lead nowhere and doors that open onto nothing. Construction is recorded as having ceased the day Sarah Winchester died in 1922. The house gives tours daily. No complete and accurate floor plan of the interior has ever been successfully made. No one is entirely sure why.